God is your refuge, no matter what you're going through right now. That's the truth you need to hold on to. There's no situation too big, no storm too chaotic, no challenge too overwhelming where God is not present, not protecting you. Today we're diving into Psalm 46 verses 1-3, a passage packed with comfort and power. Let me tell you, this could change the way you face every single trial in your life. Stick with me to the end of this video because we're going to unpack this in a way that really resonates and shows you how God is your true refuge and strength in every situation. Alright, let's jump into the first part of Psalm 46 verse 1. It says, God is our refuge and strength and ever-present help in trouble. I want you to let that sink in for a second. God isn't just some distant figure watching from afar, He's ever-present. That means He's right there with you no matter what. Whether you're walking through a storm, facing a crisis, or just dealing with the daily grind, God is present. Not sometimes, not when you feel like it, not only when things are going well, He's there, always. Think about what it means for God to be your refuge. A refuge is a place of safety, a place where you can go to escape danger. In ancient times, people would run to a stronghold or a fortress when they were under attack. It was a place where they could be safe from harm. God is saying to you right now, I am your refuge. When the world is too much, when life feels like it's crashing down, you can run to God, and He will protect you. But here's the thing, God isn't just a passive safe space, He's also your strength. He's not only the place where you find safety, but He's the one who gives you the power to keep going. Sometimes we think of God as a last resort, someone we turn to when we've run out of options. But God is so much more than that. He's your source of strength in every situation. When you feel like you don't have the energy to keep going, He's the one who sustains you. You know, life can throw some pretty heavy things our way. Maybe right now, you're going through something tough, whether it's financial struggles, relationship issues, health problems, or just the weight of uncertainty. It feels like the ground is shifting beneath your feet, like you can't find stability. But Psalm 46 reminds us that we don't have to rely on our own strength. We have the strength of God backing us up, and that's a game changer. Let's move on to verse 2. Therefore we will not fear though the earth give way and the mountains fall into the heart of the sea. Wow, that's some powerful imagery, right? Think about that for a minute. The earth giving way, mountains falling into the sea. Those are things that seem immovable, solid, and unshakable. But even if those things that seem permanent start to crumble, we will not fear. Why? Because God is our refuge and strength. I don't know about you, but when I read that, it gives me so much comfort. Life is unpredictable. One day everything seems stable and the next everything's upside down. It's like the earth is giving way beneath us. But even when life feels chaotic, we don't have to be afraid. God is still in control. And here's the key. Our circumstances might change, but God never does. He is the same yesterday, today, and forever. So even if the world around you feels like it's falling apart, God is your anchor. You don't have to live in fear. You know, I've gone through seasons in my life where I felt like everything was collapsing. Relationships fell apart, finances were tight, and I didn't know what the next day would bring. It was like standing on sinking sand. But every time, when I turned to God, He reminded me that even when my circumstances felt like they were out of control, He wasn't. He was still my refuge, still my strength. And guess what? He got me through it. That brings us to verse 3. Though its waters roar and foam, and the mountains quake with their surging. Now, I don't know if you've ever seen a storm at sea, but it's pretty terrifying. The waters roaring and foaming, the mountains quaking. It's the kind of chaos that can make you feel small, powerless. But here's the thing, even in that kind of storm, God is still our refuge. I love this imagery because it speaks to those moments when life feels completely overwhelming, like you're being tossed around by the waves. Maybe you're in a situation right now that feels like a storm. Maybe you're battling anxiety, dealing with a loss, or facing a huge decision, and you don't know what to do. It feels like the waves are crashing in, and you can barely keep your head above water. But Psalm 46 verse 3 reminds us that even in the storm, God is still with us. He's not abandoning you, He's not far away. He's right there, holding you up, keeping you afloat. One of the things that stands out to me in these verses is the theme of peace in the midst of chaos. The waters are roaring, the mountains are quaking, but we're not supposed to fear. Why? Because God is our refuge and strength. He's steady, He's constant, and He's not shaken by the things that shake us. When we turn to Him, we find a peace that doesn't make sense in the natural. It's a peace that can only come from knowing that God is in control, even when everything else seems out of control. Let me ask you something. What's your storm right now? What's roaring and surging in your life? Whatever it is, I want you to know that you don't have to face it alone. You don't have to be afraid. God is with you, and He's ready to be your refuge, your strength, and your help in times of trouble. Now here's where it gets really practical. It's one thing to say, God is my refuge, but how do we actually live that out? How do we experience God's refuge in the middle of the storm? Here are a few things I've learned from my own journey. First, you've got to run to Him. A refuge is no good if you don't enter it. When life gets hard, we have a choice. We can try to handle everything on our own, or we can turn to God. I know from experience that trying to do it all on your own is exhausting, but when you run to God, when you take refuge in Him, there's a peace that comes from knowing you're not carrying the load by yourself. Second, trust in His strength. You don't have to have it all together. You don't have to be strong all the time. God's strength is made perfect in our weakness. So when you feel weak, that's when you need to lean into God's strength the most. Let Him carry you through. And finally, let go of fear. Fear is natural, but it's not from God. The Bible says over and over again, do not fear. That's not because there's nothing scary in the world, but because we have a God who is bigger than our fears. When you feel fear creeping in, remind yourself of Psalm 46. God is your refuge, God is your strength. You don't have to live in fear. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're facing something that seems too big for you to handle, remember this. God is with you. He's your refuge, your strength, and your ever-present help in trouble. And here's the thing, He's not just with you when things are going well. He's with you in the storm, in the chaos, in the uncertainty. He's never going to leave you, and He's never going to let you face it alone. I want to encourage you to let this truth sink in. Don't just hear these words, believe them. God is your refuge and strength, and if you hold on to that truth, you'll be able to face whatever comes your way with confidence and peace. If you're ready to keep growing and seeing real transformation in your life, don't stop here. Make sure to watch the next video. May God bless you.